I've never felt like this before. It's like you just get me. I feel like my true self with you. Does that sound crazy? And it doesn't hurt that you're gorgeous. Okay, that's it. I'm taking you home with me. I mean, you can't find shoes this good just anywhere. Find a shoe for every you from brands you love, like Birkenstock, Nike, Adidas, and more at your DSW store or dsw.com.
This message comes from Capital One. The Capital One Venture X Business Card has no preset spending limit, so the card's purchasing power can adapt to meet business needs. Plus, the card earns unlimited double miles on every purchase, so the more a business spends, the more miles earned. And when traveling, the Venture X Business Card grants access to over 1,000 airport lounges. The Venture X Business Card. What's in your wallet? Terms and conditions apply. Find out more at CapitalOne.com/VentureXBusiness.
Friends, I'm starting to believe that professional wrestling might be a kind of decoder ring that can be used to understand the central theme of all 185 episodes of this podcast. Am I overstating things? Almost certainly. But if I've learned anything from wrestling, it's that you should never simply state something when you can overstate it. This podcast has been, among other things, a bi-weekly exploration of the concepts of truth and lies, reality and fiction, history and mythology. We've looked at how robust storytelling traditions can grow out of small kernels of historical fact. We've broken down how completely fictional tales have lodged themselves in our shared historical consciousness, masquerading as historical facts. We've explored the life stories of some of humanity's greatest liars, cheats, and con men. In all of that, I've found myself circling back to the concept of lying. That is, consciously insisting on a version of reality that is contrary to the observable facts. 8 years of producing Our Fake History has given me a healthy respect for the power of lies. But professional wrestling really lays it bare. Professional wrestling embodies the unique power of the lie. It's a small piece of remarkably potent dark magic that even a child can perform. Pro wrestlers kept people guessing about the legitimacy of their brand of theater for decades, despite countless exposés and exceedingly flamboyant matches. From basically the mid-30s onward, the answer to whether or not wrestling was fake was right in front of everyone's eyes. But the fact that wrestlers insisted that it was real and kept kayfabe was enough to flummox, confuse, and frustrate many observers who should have known better. That's the power of a lie. Say it with confidence, and some people will believe you no matter how ridiculous it is, no matter how much it conflicts with the observable facts right in front of their faces. Wrestling fans have shown me the enduring power of a lie even after it's revealed. In 2023, no adult wrestling fan is going to claim that wrestling isn't scripted, but many still feel uncomfortable with the word fake. Most wrestling fans I've engaged with over the course of this series have been adamant that the physicality of the performance, the fact that many wrestlers are legitimately injured in the ring, and the way good storylines reflect a deeper truth about the quality of a wrestler means that, in a way, wrestling is real. These fans are not wrong, but I've been struck by their need to make the case for wrestling's reality or quasi-reality. It can seem at times like they're honoring the business they love by giving a nod to kayfabe. The lie can't die, because if it did, then that would be disrespectful to those who lied in the past. But aside from illuminating the audacious power of the bald-face lie, wrestling can also reveal other deep truths about our society. The bare-bones melodrama of a wrestling show expresses very clearly what we think is heroic and what we think is villainous. The wrestling show does not traffic in the high-minded ideals of what our morals and values should be, but lays bare what they actually are. Throughout this series, I've been quoting from the amazing essay The World of Wrestling by the French philosopher Roland Barthes. Now, so much of that essay rang true to me, but I was particularly struck by his description of the wrestling heel, or villain, as he appeared in the wrestling rings of the 1950s. Barthes wrote that the heel is, quote, essentially someone unstable, who accepts the rules only when they are useful to him, end quote. He then continues, quote, he is unpredictable, therefore asocial. He takes refuge behind the law when he considers that it is in his favor, and breaks it when he finds it useful to do so. Sometimes he rejects the formal boundaries of the ring and goes on hitting an adversary legally protected by the ropes. Sometimes he reestablishes these boundaries and claims the protection of what he did not respect a few minutes earlier. This inconsistency, far more than treachery or cruelty, sends the audience beside itself with rage, offended not in its morality, but in its logic. It considers the contradiction of arguments as the basest of crimes, end quote. That passage really hit me. That description of the wrestling heel crystallized many feelings I've had about some of the more vile public figures and politicians we've seen in recent years. I'm not really offended by their immorality, because I don't really expect them to act morally. But weirdly, as Roland Barthes says, it's the illogic and the inconsistency that really drives me crazy. Watching politics has become a lot like being a wrestling fan. I don't think I fully appreciated that until I read that essay. Now, the most enduring wrestling heels were able to tap into a deep societal taboo and twist it into slam-bang entertainment. Take, for instance, one of the greatest heels of the early television era, George Raymond Wagner, better known as Gorgeous George. George had been a fairly unremarkable wrestler, standing a modest 5 feet 9 inches. But the story goes that at an early match, a female fan brought George a beautifully hand-embroidered robe to wear into the ring. George was so taken with the garment and the care that had clearly gone into its making that he took a moment to delicately fold it up and place it safely ringside before he started the match. Apparently, the crowd hated this and started booing hard. Something as simple as folding a robe was read by the crowd as arrogant, prissy, and worst of all, effeminate. Who did this fancy boy think he was? To his credit, George knew exactly what to do with that kind of heat. So, over the course of the next 2 decades, he developed the character of Gorgeous George, a preening, vainglorious prima donna who wore his peroxide blonde hair in elaborate, some might say womanly curls. His entrances became elaborate struts down the aisle to the strains of pomp and circumstance as he luxuriously fanned himself with a comically large peacock feather fan. He would not enter the ring until his valet had ostentatiously sprayed the mat with Chanel No. 5. Gorgeous George, by playfully subverting his own masculinity, represented the antithesis of what a tough wrestler was supposed to be. Crowds loved to hate him. Perhaps the heel gimmick of Gorgeous George could also act as a kind of decoder ring for the gender politics of the 1950s. There was nothing more audacious, upsetting, or villainous than a flamboyantly effeminate man. And yet, he was wrestling's biggest star. It's yet another contradiction in a business riddled with contradictions. To get to the bottom of all of these things, I think I'm going to need my own decoder ring. And that's where my guest today comes in. My guest is none other than wrestler, actor, comedian, and sarcastic student of the squared circle, RJ City. RJ is currently a commentator for the AEW, All Elite Wrestling, and the host of their YouTube interview show, Hey EW. In his career as a wrestler, RJ has made a name for himself as someone who plays with the form. RJ has navigated the world of wrestling with an irreverent wit, a postmodern sensibility, and a great sense of humor. Can RJ City, one of wrestling's cheekiest performers, finally explain to me the enduring allure of kayfabe? Can he be my wrestling decoder ring? Let's find out today on Our Fake History. Episode number 185, Was Wrestling Ever Real? Part 3, featuring RJ City. Hello and welcome to Our Fake History. My name is Sebastian Major, and this is the podcast where we explore historical myths and try to determine what's fact, what's fiction, and what is such a good story that it simply must be told. Before we get going this week, I just want to remind everyone listening that an ad-free version of this podcast is available through Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/OurFakeHistory and start supporting at $5 a month to get an ad-free feed and a buttload of other exclusive extra episodes. I also wanted to let everyone know that this is the last episode of Season 8. Season 8! Holy schmoly. After this show, I'm going to be taking a 2-episode break, and then Our Fake History will be returning triumphantly with Season 9 on September 19th, 2023. In the meantime, the feed won't be entirely quiet. I will be releasing 2 Our Fake History throwback episodes with brand new introductions. So there will be some new stuff to listen to in the meantime, but don't worry, I'll be back in about a month, and there will be new stuff before you know it. This week, we are wrapping up both Season 8 and our wrestling trilogy with an interview with the one and only RJ City. Now, normally, I would say that you should really go back and listen to parts 1 and 2 before jumping into part 3, but this time, I don't really think that's necessary. Well, I do think that my chat with RJ is enriched by the past 2 episodes on the history of professional wrestling in America. I also think that our conversation can be enjoyed entirely independently from the rest of the series. So if you're just here for RJ, rest assured, you'll be fine. Now, for those of you who don't know who RJ City is, let me tell you. RJ City is an actor, a comedian, a commentator, and a talk show host. But most importantly, for what we are doing here, he is a wrestler. In his 17 years of wrestling experience, he has held the Great Canadian Wrestling Championship title, the IWC Super Indie Wrestling Championship title, and the Destiny World Wrestling Championship title. He paid his dues on the indie wrestling circuit for years, and in that time got in the ring with some of wrestling's most legendary characters. One of his more memorable stints was as actor-turned-wrestler David Arquette's tag team partner / in-ring rival. These days, RJ is best known as a commentator and backstage interviewer for AEW, All Elite Wrestling, one of the biggest wrestling promotions this side of the WWE. He currently hosts the hilarious AEW interview show, Hey EW, on YouTube, where he masterfully subjects wrestling stars to his delicious brand of smartass wit. Through all of this, RJ has always brought a sense of humor, a deep intelligence, and a campy reverence for mid-century pop culture to everything he's done. In my opinion, his best moments as a heel have been confounding wrestling audiences with Ethel Merman and Don Knotts references. His love of the Golden Girls even inspired him to put B. Arthur's face on his knee pads so as to better execute his finishing move, the Knee Arthur. As you will hear, RJ is hilarious, thoughtful, and has a completely unique perspective on the wrestling business. I absolutely loved talking to him. Now, how did I get him on the show? Well, full disclosure, RJ and I have a history. We actually went to high school together. RJ and I are both products of Unionville High School's Arts York drama program. This was an arts-intensive high school in the suburbs north of Toronto. I can tell you, even as a high school student, RJ was hilarious and a total original. He's always kind of been the guy that you're going to hear on the show today. He did not change at all as he got more famous and became more of a figure in the wrestling world, which you got to love. You got to love that. So, not only did I get to talk to a wrestling insider, but I got to reconnect with an old friend on this interview. So this one goes out to all the drama kids from the Arts York program at Unionville High School. Here's my talk with RJ City. Enjoy. All right, RJ City, welcome to Our Fake History.
Thank you for having me. There is no industry with a faker history than wrestling.
Right?
So I'm happy you finally got here.
Yeah, I am too. It's been so cool just reconnecting with you leading up to this. And, not only did I have to have you on because I kind of knew you, but not only are you a wrestler, I think you're a bit of a student of wrestling history.
Yeah, I would say legitimately.
Yeah.
I went to the former Ryerson University and I got a major in culture and entertainment.
Right on.
If you say, what is that? I say it's just a major that allowed me to write about wrestling.
Right on. Okay, so then I'm sure you've read every book about wrestling. You actually recommended to me like the sources that I used on the podcast, but I wanted to read you a quote and I want you to listen to it. I'm sure you'll guess who the quote is about, but I wanted to see if you could do it. I'm going to test you right off the top here. So, okay, this is from Thomas Hackett's sort of anthropological study of wrestling called Slap Happy. And he wrote
nice
this.
Derogatory title.
Yes, right.
Yes.
He wrote this. He said, quote,
The professional wrestler started saying something rather postmodern about success in the age of celebrity. He was ironic. He was playful. He was campy. He was contradictory. He turned old conventions in on themselves. He treated achievement as a glorious goof. Of celebrity, he was saying what historian Daniel Borstein would write a decade later in The Image, that it was essentially meaningless, just a pose. His message on manliness was much the same. And yet, in celebrating his celebrity and mocking his manhood, he went beyond a puritanical denunciation of their emptiness. He said something inspired about meaning emerging from seeming meaninglessness. End quote. Wow. So, who do you think that was about?
I'm gonna say Chris Jericho.
No, that is about the sort of original 1950s pretty boy heel, Gorgeous George.
Of course. Why wouldn't it be? That makes so much sense.
Right.
But, and I will say, as you probably have found out, Gorgeous George is like integral to modern pop culture, period.
Very much so. And no, the reason that quote stuck with me is that even though it's about Gorgeous George, RJ, I thought that quote could have been about you.
Well, that's very sweet of you.
You know, but like the whole idea of like, he was ironic. He was playful. He was campy. I'm like, oh, I know that guy.
Right. But I also think that that's just wrestling.
Right.
It's hard to look at any wrestling and go, this is not campy.
Right. 100%. Well, that's where I wanted to start, because I wanted to get into this idea of the birth of kayfabe, the evolution of kayfabe, the way that wrestling is both real and imagined and playful and silly and dead serious all at the same time. And I think you're someone who's played with the boundaries of kayfabe throughout your wrestling career. And so I wanted your opinion on what you think kayfabe means in contemporary wrestling. And I want to know how you've worked with it in your own career.
I have come to the conclusion that kayfabe means that the audience is inside the fourth wall.
Right.
As opposed to that separation of, I don't know, Glengarry Glen Ross, when I saw it on Broadway and Al Pacino had weird orthopedic shoes and I didn't know if they were a character choice. You know, he's not including me in what he's doing. He's not turning to me and going, that was pretty good, huh? Right. But in wrestling, you are in the play the same way you would be if you went to like Pioneer Village or a medieval times.
Sure.
Similarly, I could also compare it to the work of maybe a Pee Wee Herman.
Okay.
Or a Borat.
Okay.
Or the Muppets.
I love
where
it.
You know what the convention is. You're not fully tricked by any of this.
Sure.
But it's almost an illusion in the sense that Pee Wee Herman is walking the red carpet.
Right.
And Jim Henson is... Kermit's hosting the Tonight Show, which means Jim Henson has to go under a desk to do it.
Right.
You know?
Right. But that's an amazing comparison, because I've heard, talk show hosts like Seth Meyers talk about how, when you're doing bits with Kermit, you can't help but interact with the puppet.
Yes.
But you're not interacting with the guy under the desk. You are engaging with Kermit the Frog.
Right. And so it's like it's a participatory illusion.
Sure.
Is maybe a good way to describe wrestling. With wrestling, as we've seen during the pandemic, wrestling without fans is incredibly difficult.
Sure. Yeah. So, when you got into wrestling, when did you kind of have the moment where you're like, oh, I need to mess with this form. I need to play with the kayfabe of it all.
There's a lot to learn about wrestling when you wrestle. And
sure.
you never stop learning and you never stop, that whole thing. But at a certain point, I can only speak personally in terms of doing it.
Sure.
I got really bored with the creative options that were available.
Okay.
If you do this, they'll cheer. If you do this, they'll boo. And there was a whole other area of, but what if I do this? What will they do? I feel like I got to a point where I was really only interested in answering questions that have not been answered yet.
So do you remember what your first moment of, originality, the first time you felt like you put a spin on something, you're like, oh, this is a new one. Maybe they haven't seen this before.
There's a recent one, and I say recent meaning it was in the last few years, where I was a bad guy. I was a heel. They wanted to make me a good guy. I was uncomfortable with it. I have likability issues. It's not a good spot for me to be.
Sure.
And I thought, well, what if the only way I can be a good guy is if I tell everyone I'm trying to be the bad guy right now.
Sure.
So could you please boo for me? This is all part of a show. I used to write on this was an odd aha moment for me.
Uh-huh.
I used to write on a daytime show.
Uh-huh.
And they used to warm up the audience. They used to have a guy there who basically explains that a daytime show is fake.
Sure.
We're going to get all the shots of you laughing up front.
Right.
So no matter what they say, it'll look like it's hilarious when it airs.
Right.
And it's such a heartbreaking moment to me. Because it's like these people can't come out and just talk about pillows and crepes and whatever the hell they're supposed to be talking. Like, is it that hard? We have to fake this?
Sure.
It was always a heartbreaking moment to me. But I would always run and watch this audience warm-up guy.
Yeah.
It was fascinating to me. I loved it. So I remember taking that, and I was still wrestling on the weekend. So like the next weekend, I did a bit where I demanded we do my entrance again.
Oh, yeah.
Because they didn't cheer enough. The camera didn't get it.
Yeah.
Everyone, big faces, big smiles. You're all happy to be here. And, people hate being talked to like that.
Sure.
The only difference is in wrestling, they're allowed to boo.
Right.
Right? So then we went to go do it a third time. So I made my second entrance and I was displeased. And I went, we're going to do it again. And then my opponent jumped on me.
Right. Right.
So it was stuff like that where I thought, oh, they're smarter than kayfabe is treating them.
Sure. Sure.
So I think we can go a little further with the layers. I also feel like even if you're not a diehard wrestling fan, if you watch 3 matches, like I think you got it.
Right. Right. Sure.
You know what I mean? I think
Yeah.
you know what the gist is here.
Yeah.
So I always thought we could go further, and we're not doing enough in the direction of the unknown.
Yeah. I just also love the beautiful irony of like, you know what? I don't like that heel. He's a phony.
Exactly. Yes, it's incredible. And I also find, and wrestling is really reflective of the values of people. When you go to different areas, you can't do certain things.
Sure.
Right?
Is there anything that comes to mind where you're like, oh, when I'm here, this is taboo?
Yeah, well, I would go to small towns that just have never seen wrestling before.
Sure.
And they would just, why are you wearing a diaper? They would say. And I would say, I have news for you. Like, everyone is wearing a diaper on this show.
Sure.
This is a real, like, baby fetish show for you. This is going to blow your mind.
Yeah.
And then there were certain places, wrestling to me is drag.
Sure.
In the sense that we're playing our masculinity. We're playing the submission of it all. And I was interested in playing as non-aggressive as possible.
Right.
Really simply because there was so much aggression on the show. And I thought, I'm not a hulking brute. What am I going to do? So let's play. And I don't want to say feminine. It wasn't a choice to be, let's be feminine. Let's be non-masculine, non-aggressive, whatever. And so I would sit on the top rope and I would cross my legs and sit cavalierly maybe like a Jack Benny, who is a non-aggressive male to me,
Sure.
And there were some places I would do that would be severely bothered by just me crossing my legs.
Right.
Yes. And to this day, when I do my talk show, I cross my legs, which I think is pretty normal.
Sure.
But there's always a couple comments of, why is he crossing his legs like that?
Right.
So, and we're just playing with the conventions that they hold.
Right. But I feel like there's a long tradition of that in wrestling, of sort of the heel messing with conventional ideas of masculinity. Right.
Yes.
And playing on the homophobia of the crowd a little bit.
Yes.
And I love your character of like, I'm your grandmother's best friend. You
Yes.
know, like we get together, we put on Ethel Merman records, we watch the Golden Girls, and we have a nice time for once.
Right. There's a long history in wrestling of identifying and ostracizing the homosexual character. So they can say, that guy's gay.
Right.
Wrestling is not gay.
Right.
This male intimacy that we're doing here, that's not gay.
Yeah.
It's that guy, and he's bad, and boo. So I always made it conscious to, I guess, play with that in a more modern way.
I love that too, because it's like, oh, we've identified the person who is queer coded here, so boo them. Now we can get back to just slamming our bros.
Yeah. And we don't, a lot of wrestlers have difficulty acknowledging the physical intimacy, the non-sexual physical intimacy of what we're doing.
Sure.
Oh my God, your face is really close to my face. Take a minute and think about it. But no, I always tried to consciously make sure I could be a non-aggressive male without being the ostracized homosexual, because that's just not the best thing to do anymore.
Yeah, and I know I've seen wonderful videos of you wrestling where you'll sing in the ring, and just like and get the heel heat from just singing a public domain tune, know,
because the strategy is, and it is really simple, the heel gives them what they don't want.
Right.
And what did they come here to see? Athleticism, heroicism, that sort of battle, that titanic struggle. So what is the polar opposite of that to me? And it's Ethel Merman, it's Cole Porter, it's just,
sure.
There's no redeeming quality.
It's the pop culture of yesteryear, and I know you are a scholar of that as well.
Yes, and it's not even that. I remember somebody saying to me, "Well, you should go out there and sing Justin Bieber," and I'm like, "That's too popular."
Right.
It's gonna ruin what I'm doing. I can't give them any room to breathe here.
Yeah. I've actually always been curious about this, RJ, because like you are obsessed with a pop culture that was truly, before our time. Like you're a little bit younger than me.
Yes.
And I know that stuff, like the stuff that you're really obsessed with, like Don Knotts and Ethel Merman and the sort of like Broadway impresarios of the 1960s and 70s. That stuff was still just barely in the air when we were coming up. How did you get so into it?
I was a sociological experiment by my grandmother, who just sat me down and said, "You're going to really need to watch this Abbott and Costello movie.
Right.
You need to watch it." And then I would go to school going, "Have you seen Time of Their Lives?"
Well, I actually remember, and this is actually one of my favorite memories of knowing you when you were a high school student, is you went to our teacher, a guy named Rob Cook.
Yes.
And you went to him one day and you just went, you remind me of a young Jack Benny. And he said, "Do you even know who that is?" And you went, "Not really, but it just felt right." And I was like, and so like to see your evolution, I'm like, oh no, RJ came out of the womb, as his wrestling character in a lot of ways.
Yes, at least I'm happy that you're around to attest that I've been largely exactly the same.
No, you truly were that. It's funny because it's like, I know the names, I know the touchstones, and I'm sure since then you're like, no, I really got to dig in to make sure there's some depth to my weird, obscure reference here.
Yes. And then I become obsessed with that stuff. And then I go, it's not gonna read because people are listening to this, but I'm holding up a Lawrence Welk TV guide that a fan sent me.
Beautiful.
So, no, and I go, why do I like that stuff? And why do I like that pop culture compared to now? And I think it's because it is these more broadly drawn, distinct characters.
Right. Sure.
And that does mirror wrestling in a way, especially the heyday of wrestling in the 80s.
Yeah.
Of everyone can do a Randy Savage,
right,
or an Ultimate Warrior, or a Hulk Hogan, in the same way that you could do Don Knotts, like a real distinct person, but you can't do Ben Affleck.
It's really hard,
right? You're just like, what's there? He's just a guy. I mean, he's very talented. I'm not saying he's a horrible person, but there's nothing, physically, the mannerisms, anything. It's not really distinct.
Right. Okay. So I want to bring it back though to, your kind of messing with people's expectations at wrestling show to kind of draw the heel heat.
Yes.
Have you found that just by being meta, by sort of pointing to the artifice of the wrestling match, that in itself can rile up a crowd?
You know what? It really riles up the locker room and the people putting on the show the most.
Yeah? Do tell.
I remember I had to wrestle a guy in a loser leaves town match. And I think we were both heels and we thought it would be funny. We decided that we both don't even like wrestling here.
Sure.
So we both now want to lose. If we lose, we don't have to come back. This is amazing.
Yeah.
This is great.
Yeah.
So may the best man lose, I think is how we ended the little promo we did.
Yeah.
And we got to the back and there was a guy there who runs a big wrestling company. And he said, I loved that. But if you guys did that for my company, I would fire the both of you.
Wow. Wow.
So then you go, but you just said you loved it.
Right.
So,
right.
Because it goes against this big invisible wall, that we mustn't rock the boat there. Must do things a certain way, must respect this business in a certain way. And you're like, but we're depriving the audience of something new, and fresh. And that's a little, on top of what they already know. We're taking them somewhere. We're doing something that I don't want to say like is artistically significant.
Yeah.
But I think is at least worth doing to see what they would do. In my estimation, doing this second layer of kayfabe stuff does not feel like it harms anything. It's more often than not, I get a real refreshed response because I'm taking them past what's already been established.
Right. And if the point is to put on a great show and make it a great night for everybody that came out, what more could you want? But sorry, this kind of leads into something that I had wanted to ask you about. You've said before that sometimes you feel like you're the only wrestler that understands that they're at a wrestling show.
Yeah.
And so, this is what you seem to be getting at. Like, do you think the wider wrestling community is still honoring a type of kayfabe that passed away decades ago?
Yes. but also they are glorifying it in a way that bothers me in the sense that I always hear the line is, oh, we're not really wrestling, we're making movies.
Okay.
And I thought, maybe don't compare this to a movie because then it's going to look really bad. Why are there people backstage who sometimes talk to the camera and sometimes don't? Like, what are the rules of this universe? Which is a really simple, if you're writing a movie, might be important to figure out.
Yeah.
Right? Why do sometimes things happen and sometimes they don't? Seems really arbitrary. What are they doing backstage? What's the locker room like? Like, how are we? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't compare this to a movie then.
Sure.
But then I go, well, what if we did?
Yeah.
And I look around and you start noticing things that are off. And, luckily, most of my wrestling was done in a Legion Hall in Oshawa. So I'm able to complain about the lighting.
Right.
And say, this is not right for me. And it's great because I'm taking things that exist and incorporating them into that. And they really, I have a friend, his name is Nug, and he said, the best part about RJ is that you think it's an act.
Yeah.
And I will go to these buildings and point out things that are wrong with the building. That's not a lie. This Legion is horribly lit.
Yeah.
And it does give people a weird self-awareness of where we are. I always, when you're wrestling in these small places, it used to kill me, the wrestlers who would come out and act like they were performing for 50,000 people.
Sure.
On one hand, I get it because you want the attitude of whatever I do is the best.
Yeah.
This is big time stuff. I'm big time. I get that.
Yeah.
But I also found like, gee, what if we just come out and acknowledge where we are?
Yeah.
Acknowledge that we're in a hybrid MMA gym that's probably run by some member of the Hells Angels.
Sure, right.
Let's just say that. And when you do that, you get a release from people. I also thought, wrestling is a circus in the sense that, you can't have a circus with all elephants would be very sad. You know what I mean? It's just too many elephants. And I really would always look at the card that night and go, well, what can I do that no one else is doing?
Yeah.
And that always led me down that road. So I think it's overall, just a good thing to do. And it doesn't kill the kayfabe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It kind of lifts up the curtain, winks, and then puts it back down.
Okay, I want to take us back in time a little bit. We've been talking about contemporary wrestling. Again, I know you're a student of the past of wrestling. I really loved learning about the circus origins of professional wrestling, and when part of it was a carnival hustle, to get money out of people in the same way any sort of rigged carnival game could have been. How much of the circus, you already kind of talked about this a little bit, but how much of the circus or the carnival you think is still in professional wrestling?
I mean, it is the last vestige of that world.
Yeah.
To me, I don't even think, obviously something like burlesque is, but I don't think it's run. Burlesque seems a lot smarter than wrestling, like modern burlesque. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's what we're doing, what we're saying about bodies and blah, blah, blah. It's very conscious and self-aware. I really think this is the end of vaudeville. When wrestling goes, then we can say vaudeville is dead.
Sure.
But yeah, we are tricking people, and they're paying their money to be tricked.
Yes.
Which I think is the implicit, you're all part of the show. And the unique thing about wrestling is most of the time that trick is not really a trick.
Right. Yeah, well, in my research, the eras that I really got obsessed with were the 1920s era, especially when real wrestling might just happen, and not in the context that any of the promoters wanted. That to me was a really fascinating sort of time where essentially everything was worked. There were programs in place. The sport had already sort of was well on its way to becoming entertainment, but to preserve kayfabe, you still had to let these guys in who might just wrestle someone for real. And what do you think? You think when that went away, did that drastically alter what wrestling is?
Well, I think wrestling only became wrestling when it pulled away from that.
Right.
Because I think about it in terms of boxing.
Yeah.
How you could still probably fix a boxing match.
Right.
And have people not realize that you fixed it.
Right.
Right. Wrestling, for us to wrestle for real, you would immediately know we're wrestling for real.
Right. Of course.
Because what we now know as wrestling is so far away.
Yeah.
From this legitimate contest.
Yeah.
And I think they just realized, oh, people like this.
Yeah.
We need to keep going down this road. And I also get upset with guys from the late 70s or early 80s who said, in this business, we used to do it like the wrestling business was real. Everyone thought it was real. And then I'll pull up something from, the 40s, and it was there's these French trapeze wrestlers.
Yeah.
And they're on these things that launch them into the air. And they're doing acrobatics, and it's like, you guys are decades late.
Yeah.
Everyone who thought it was real, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, well, and that's something that, comes up in the research, right? That's every 10 years, wrestling was exposed.
Right. It's insane.
It's in 1911, it was exposed, and then it was exposed again in 1925, and then it was exposed again in the late 30s.
Yeah.
And then Jack Pfeffer, I'm sure the legendary wrestling promoter Jack Pfeffer, starts giving interviews about being this is entertainment, this isn't sports, this is all fake. I'm basically putting on a freak show. And then 10 years later, someone else writes an expose can you believe that wrestling is not on the level.
Yes, always. I mean, the New York Times stopped covering it because they're like, this is not a legitimate sport. So it's not even like an underground outing. Like, that's pretty public.
Yeah.
Why did it not kill the business? Well, because everyone realized we really don't care that it's fake.
Right. That's the thing. Right. And that's, I used a quote from Roland Barthes at the beginning of the first episode. And, he, this like very heady French philosopher going like, the people don't care that it's rigged, right? The people care about the sort of deeper symbols that are being expressed through the show.
Mm-hmm.
And he was right on the money. And he was sort of commenting about wrestling in the 1950s when the good and evil struggle was so straightforward, was so basic. He very, very like seriously compared professional wrestling of that era to classical Greek drama and to commedia dell'arte. And for listeners that might not know that reference, commedia dell'arte is this super exaggerated medieval Italian street theater form. But what do you think about that? Like, does that ring true to you? Do you think that, wrestling could seriously be compared to those sort of classical theater forms?
Yes, but I also go, is it considered art if we don't do it with that intent? And I'm sure you could do a separate podcast on that.
No, I love that.
But that's where I go, maybe this is not art if we're not self-aware of what we're doing while we're doing it.
But okay, so do you really truly think that not enough people in the biz are aware that that's what they're doing?
In terms of playing with symbols and reflecting people's values, I don't think we really have those conversations. I think it's pared down a lot more to let's make money. I mean, it is a carnival, but by entertaining these people and getting them, emotionally playing with them. But I don't think they ever go, what are we saying here?
Right.
And I'm not speaking for everybody, obviously. There's plenty of people who are, I guess, waking up to that. But, Commedia dell'arte had like a strong political message.
Right.
Of the mayor of the day, let's say. Let's make fun of this guy. Let's put a buffoon in charge and say, oh, all government's weird.
Yeah.
I don't think, in the 80s, wrestling was based on, I think America hates the Russians.
Yeah, sure.
But I don't think they're saying, let's send a message about international conflict.
Right. But maybe, and it stopped me if this is like too much, but maybe the stories that, people gravitate to naturally, or even like wrestlers who are putting together the show are they're going to go to the most archetypal stuff because it's the most sort of in the bones. Like if you don't want to overthink what the story is going to be, you will gravitate to the story that has been culturally suggested to you.
Right. But I also think comparing it to the Greek tragedy is true in the sense that the audience is the chorus.
Right.
And they get to approve or deny. And the audience really does act as one.
Mm-hmm.
Rarely do you have, you watch a movie in silence, and then afterwards you take away something, I take away something else.
Yeah.
With a wrestling audience, they have to voice their opinions, generally speaking, immediately all together.
Yeah.
They have to sync it all up.
Yeah.
They have to chant how they feel, and they have to coordinate their chants.
Right.
So, maybe just by virtue of multiple people having to act together, we can't get too complicated. Right.
Well, now here's a question. Have you ever been in a match where the audience all of a sudden decided to take the story in a different direction?
Yes.
Right. Where you're like, oh, I was supposed to be the heel, and they decided that they liked me.
Mm-hmm. I've been in these, and we've gone knowing that kind of stuff ahead of time. Especially with, and I hate using the term because now I'm invoking some sort of class warfare, but smarter towns, right?
Yeah.
That may enjoy like the smart ass thing I'm doing, likely because there's just a bunch of smart asses in the crowd.
Sure. Yeah.
You go, okay, you know, if we do something in Oshawa and if we do it in Toronto, it's going to have two different reactions.
Sure.
Let's just make sure that they're reacting.
Yeah.
I don't care which way.
Yeah.
Whether they like you, whether they like me, it doesn't really matter to me.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it's just too hard to guess.
Sure.
Depending on what you're doing.
Yeah. No, I know myself, like going to like indie wrestling shows, and you know, I can't help but gravitate to the character who seems a little more smart, who seems a little more knowing, who is clearly a good actor in the stage. But again, that's me, right? And I might not be a typical wrestling fan in that way. But at the same time, I'm not there to spoil it. I'm there to have a good time like everybody else, you know?
But which might put you at odds with most of the audience.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
In terms of chanting things and whatever.
Yeah.
You now might be watching the audience.
Yeah, a little bit. And like, you know, one of my favorite things I've ever done was see wrestling in Mexico. And going to like the Arena Mexico in Mexico City and watching like a really big, like high production value lucha libre match. And it's the stuff I believe they televise in Mexico. And you know, it's a show in Spanish. And I do not speak Spanish, but man, you get it. You get what's going on.
Yes.
But there was a part of me that was like, well, look at this cultural experience we were having, you know. I think I was a step removed compared to the 11-year-old Mexican kid beside me who's like, yes, it's fuego, you know.
Right. And I believe me, you don't have to be 11 to have that simplistic of a response. Wrestling fans are a wonderful breed. But I go, you know, knowing people like you who think that way, obviously, like writing on at a bunch of university, I go, how do I take my wrestling to your level?
Sure.
Where now you get lost in what I'm giving you at your level, as opposed to just watching the audience going, this is a wonderful experience for everyone.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I've heard you compare wrestling to punk rock before. And I think that actually is sort of a punk rock approach to wrestling, if I may, because like, you know, I think the best punk music is, you know, stripped down, aggressive, but when it's really good, it's kind of whip smart and funny and surprising. And like the most enduring and the best punk bands, they have that same dichotomy in what they're putting out there, you know?
Yes. So I always feel like from a business perspective, a lot of people are turned off by wrestling.
Sure.
Just because they think it's going to be a certain thing. And I go, how do I reach the person who used to watch and grew out of it? Or how do I reach the person who doesn't like it?
Right.
I just want to know that I want to reach these different kinds of people. So I always feel like wrestling has a messaging problem.
Yeah.
We don't wrap it in the nicest package. You know what I mean? Make it could be a lot more accessible.
Yeah, fair enough. But like, you know, like punk rock or any type of thing that sort of felt like it grew out of some sort of underground, there would be fans that would hate that.
Right.
It would be like, no, this isn't for everyone. This is for us.
Right. And there would be musicians that hate it.
Right. Exactly.
Saying, no, what I mean, it's so funny to say, no, this is punk rock.
I mean, that is the story of punk rock, though, my friend.
Right. It's like, who cares?
Yeah.
Really? This is not yours. It's nobody's. Who cares?
Yeah.
Just make it whatever you want. I mean, I've done such strange wrestling shows. Like some of the loudest reactions I've heard have been at a place called Old Wrestling.
Okay.
And the premise is that it's wrestling from the early 1900s.
Right.
In a barn in Ohio, and they have a ragtime band who does rim shots as people hit their moves. And they have a character like Typhoid Mary who coughs on everyone.
Yes.
But people love it.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's like my kind of show, right? Like that's the kind of thing that like would bring out a fan like me. That's like, oh, this is going to be fun. This is going to be filled with knowing history jokes. Right. So it's like, if you're someone that like kind of knows what the world was like 100 years ago, you'll appreciate the references we're going to make here, you know?
And then obviously the best and the really talented wrestlers do it. And I think of, I don't know, Bryan Danielson, a Kenny Omega, someone who's operating on another level where, you know, whether you know or you don't know, you will understand that was a great match.
Sure.
You can hit all the boxes.
Yeah.
You know, I said I can't hit all the boxes. Let me go for the most obscure one.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah. No, I hear you. So okay, when I came into this discussion, I think I made an assumption that we were sort of living in a post kayfabe world in wrestling. But talking to you, I'm thinking maybe we're not. Are we post kayfabe, RJ?
No, I think we're in we've added another layer to it.
Yeah.
I don't think it's gotten less. I think it's gotten more complicated.
Yeah.
And we do the old adage of like, let's tell them that was real and then we can work them again.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
You know, which is even better. It's this 4D chess business.
Yeah, well, someone threw that out on Twitter at me the other day where they were like, oh, like, in the Attitude Era in the WWE, all of a sudden, like the storylines kind of reflected kind of what was really going on behind the scenes in an exaggerated way. Mm-hmm. And they were asking, like, is this sort of like a post kayfabe, through the looking glass thing for smarts or smarks? Mm-hmm. As the combination is, or is it just the same old crap?
Well, I would say it's a double kayfabe. We've added yet another door on the front, but the same way that everyone started watching that Vanderpump show when one guy cheated on whoever it was, and now everyone's watching this reality show.
Sure,
it's the same. It's that same deal of like, ooh, wondering what's going on behind the scenes. But I do come at it the sense that if people are watching me wrestle and wondering what's really going on behind the scenes, I don't feel like I'm doing a good job.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I understand that because in a way that's sort of the ultimate break of kayfabe. You've wrecked the show.
Right. That's like watching, I don't know, whatever happened to Baby Jane and like just ignoring the performances.
Yeah.
You watch it and it's still a good movie, even though they hated each other.
Yeah. Well, and I think of, magic. I think of stage magic. And so, earlier this season, I did a big series on Harry Houdini. And, Harry Houdini could have been a professional wrestler at one point. He was a circus strongman. He was sort of like adjacent to that whole world, kind of did everything in the carnival at one point. And he presented himself as like, I am the athlete magician, and I feel like really good stage magic has even the most self-aware magic fan kind of dazzled, right? Where you stop going like, I wonder where they put the trap door. I wonder what the mechanics of that particular trick are. And when it's so good, you're just like, wow, magic's real.
So it forces you to enjoy it against your logic.
Right.
So if you can't see where the trick is, then you're really into it. I remember I don't know, I think it was like upstate Michigan and it was like magic show, $10. I'm like, I gotta go to this.
Sure, yeah.
And some guy did a thing with all these bottles and there was like 10 people in the audience. I said, I'm really gonna pay attention to this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm gonna really figure this guy out. And he was fantastic and he just lost me. And I just went, you won. You know what I mean? Like I have to give myself up to the amazement that you've created.
Because even though there's technique in there somewhere, you're like, you're so good that it might as well be magic, Yes.
Now, the humor of wrestling and the humor of Houdini is that there are a lot of tricks where there's actually no trick.
Right.
Houdini, tremendous, also a little stupid. You know what I mean?
Sure.
The punching. The whole punching thing we could have done away with. Not really necessary.
Yeah.
So, there's a part of him and there's a part of all wrestlers. And I have this stand-up bit where wrestling is like if a magician saw his assistant in half for real and just said, I'm a real magician. What? You're a real, you're a murderer. You killed this poor woman. No, I'm a real. Well, I do magic. I mean, even think about that. I do magic for real, which also reminds me of the David Blaines and the really not a magician. You're just a man drowning.
Yeah. But that's the thing. I actually have never found myself interested in like the feats of endurance stuff
Yes.
that isn't really like, hey, I've perfected a particular technique to kind of dazzle you. It's just like watch the extremes of what the human body can do.
Mhm.
And I know there are some people out there that genuinely are entertained by that, and God bless you if that's your bag. But that's never been my thing. Like seeing a man in ice is uninteresting to me, you know?
Yes. It's just not what you consider to be magic.
No,
Right?
exactly. Yeah.
And I do, and especially when you wrestle a lot and you wrestle people who've wrestled 100 times more than you'll ever wrestle, and they had to do 4 shows this week, and they're old and they're whatever. The greatest compliment I ever got was that I wouldn't hurt the person I'm wrestling. They can trust me. And I used to get that spot of like the older guy would come in and I would be put with them because I knew their stuff and I wouldn't hurt them.
Yeah.
And you go, and especially when the more you work with people who've made money in the business, you realize the secret is to not get hurt, which is incredibly hard.
But that makes sense because that's how actors approach it, right? That's how, like, if someone was doing like a really physical play where there's a lot of stage combat, like you do not want anyone getting hurt. And the technique, I mean, I'm not telling this to you, of course you know this, right? But the technique is truly preserving the safety of it all while also making it look good. And so I could totally get why, you know, an old hand would be like, yeah, we're actors doing great stage combat. But they said that you were the guy, so that means that there were other people in the mix that maybe weren't the guy, that got in the ring and didn't fully realize that the safety of their opponent was necessarily a priority.
Right. And just think we can just punch each other in the face. I can take it.
Right.
Which is that kind of, and I don't think they're aware of it to this extent, but that it's like this method acting.
Sure. Yeah.
There's some, and I can't remember who it was, Dustin Hoffman or Robert De Niro, and it was Laurence Olivier. They asked how you gained so much weight for that role, and he said, I wore a fat suit. Like, it's called acting. Like, well, I don't understand, you know. But there is that thing of, you know, wrestlers are always chasing that moment where you think it's real, and then sometimes, I don't even know if it's not the easiest way to do it, but to just do it for real. Yeah.
But I know that in the world of theater, that is considered like lesser.
Right.
That is like, no. Like if you're actually out there doing it for real, then like you're kind of an amateur, you know?
Yes. But then, so there's and that really does not exist in wrestling as much as it should. There's a guy like Terry Funk. Many people consider him like the greatest wrestler of all time. He just does this punching combination, and Mick Foley's book, he said the secret to it is that he just punches you as hard as he can in the face.
Right.
And this is considered really, I mean, I would say all wrestling would put him maybe in the top 10. Everyone would say that.
Sure.
And I'm like, why are we not blackballing this man?
Sure.
You know? Right. And when I come into it with that attitude, instinctually, I go, let's play that worry in my match.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Because that's where the stakes are now for me.
Yeah. No, and there's nothing better than like a heel kind of getting in there and being like, we made an agreement that you wouldn't hurt this pretty face.
Yes.
You know, and then you get smacked, you know?
Right. Yes. Like I saw, was really unnecessary, but I saw Alan Thicke do some musical that they were workshopping or whatever. And he had a look on his face like, I want to get this, give me my cash, and I want to get this over with.
Yeah.
Needless to say, it's not the most likable presentation for Alan Thicke. But I thought, gee, what if I did that while I was wrestling?
I love that so much, RJ, because that is so on brand. You like in like the third row at Canadian television icon Alan Thicke's concert, where I presume he's playing all of the theme show.
No, he's doing he was in a musical called Queen for a Day, and he played the host of the show. And at no time during his dance numbers did either of his feet leave the ground.
Beautiful.
And I thought that's tremendous. It's infuriating and it's tremendous.
Yeah. I love that. Okay, so we've kind of been all around this, but for me, who's very much an outsider looking in, it seems like the wrestling world is actually very reverential of wrestling history. But, I've heard you in other interviews complain that you think that a lot of wrestling fans and even other wrestlers don't really have a good sense of what wrestling history is. Do you think there's a false narrative out there about the history of wrestling that some folks have bought into?
I would say almost everyone has bought into it. I think it's an industry that has functioned on misinformation.
Yes.
Forever and ever and ever. And the idea that 93,000 people were at WrestleMania 3, and that turned out maybe not to be the case, according to, I don't know, some fire marshals who had to file a report. And even logistically, you can look at it and go, this doesn't make any sense. Yeah. Or that Andre the Giant had real fluctuating heights and weights.
Yeah, sure.
Come on. And even when WrestleMania 3 is a great example because it is, that's such a big show.
Yeah.
Andre the Giant's never been slammed, and you're a kid and you buy it.
Yeah.
And then, years later, you go on YouTube and see that he's been slammed maybe 50 times before.
Of course.
And he's wrestled Hulk Hogan.
Right.
And he's lost. It's like, what? All of this, there's a real undoing. And I don't know if it was because of the internet or it's just because, you get older, you stop being a child.
Sure.
And you start learning this stuff.
Sure.
But and I'm lucky enough to talk to people now who worked, back then, and even guys who wrote magazines, and they're like, we didn't even interview the wrestlers. We just made it up.
Yeah, sure.
And it's like, you couldn't even, it's just it's just lies everywhere. But yet, people hold those things so dearly.
Mm-hmm.
They really do. The same way they would hold real things, like the Chicago Cubs winning the World Series, or
sure,
provable things.
Yeah.
And then these things are just not provable.
Yeah.
And they are lies. They're clearly lies that are. But I guess that's the fun of wrestling. And I'm going down. This is a horrible road now, but it's the P.T. Barnum of it.
Sure.
And that you also see in politics now too.
Yeah.
Even more so, more blatantly in the last 10 years.
Oh,
where you had 8,000 people there. Okay, that's great. But let's say there was 10,000.
Yeah. And I actually kept on thinking about sort of the modern political arena, reading about wrestling, because especially like Roland Barthes' essay about wrestling, he goes on about, what the heel does. Mm-hmm. I don't have it right at my fingertips here, but there's this whole thing about like the 1950s heel is like both breaking the rules sometimes and then hiding behind the rules at other times. Mm-hmm. Right. So it's like, oh, you can't hit anyone outside of the ring, so I'm going to jump out of the ring. But then as soon as the other guy's out of the ring, he hits him. Right. And Roland Barthes is like, the crowd boos not because of the rule breaking, but because of the lack of logic. And I was like, oh man, there's a parallel here between that and then, if there's a particular politician that you don't like that kind of uses those heel moves, people freak out about the lack of logic of it all. Like a second ago, you said the courts don't matter, and now you care about the courts. But it's like, but that's classic heel behavior, isn't it?
Yes. And even the idea that you have to like the person you're voting for.
Sure.
And you have to not like the person you're not voting for.
Right.
That to me is the wrestling of it. I don't have to like any of it. Why are we liking these people?
Yeah, who cares?
They're not meant to be liked. I don't like my librarian. I'm picking out a book. Swipe my card. I don't need to like you. This is a job.
That's right.
So and the likability equation happens because they play on people's base fears.
Yeah. And then the other part of it is just the like being exposed and then just going, that didn't happen. Mm-hmm. And like that's the thing about, wrestling that kind of hit me, was just like all of these exposés over the years, and wrestling just kept on trucking, right? They didn't even acknowledge it. And we're just like, on with the show. What are you talking about? What expose? It's totally real. The end. Right. And that blatantness amazingly kept people guessing. That's the thing that actually gets me, is that like, even as late as the late 90s, people are interviewing wrestlers and going like, so, is this on the level or what? And think about how colorful wrestling was by that point.
If you have a basic understanding of physics, wrestling isn't real.
Right.
I don't need, and I always, and people, and then I guess people just, there's other mainstream people don't really think about it. People go, that wrestling stuff, that's fake, right? And I said, the ropes are bouncy. Of course it's fake. Like, what? Sorry, what are you not understanding here?
Yeah.
And I always think, and I think it does a disservice to what we're doing, that it's put in terms of real versus fake.
Sure.
And that, I think that's the thing about kayfabe that bothers me, is that it's limiting and it's constrictive to the talent that's on display and the real fun stuff that could be done. And I think the only reason people keep going, oh, that's fake, is because we got a bunch of people on the inside saying, tell them it's real. You know what I mean? Like, what?
Yeah.
It was just so paranoid about it. What if we came out at the end and did a curtain call?
Yeah. We don't have
Why?
to tell people that the ballet is fake,
right? Yes, and I do think the difference is, I mean, look, there's resistant wrestlers who can't let go of things and want culturally things to be the same way. But I do think it would be particularly jarring to do that to a wrestling audience because they have been part of the show.
Yeah. Come out and take a bow, because then you're asking them to break character.
Yes. So in that sense, wrestling feels almost like a themed restaurant.
Yeah.
Where it doesn't end, you just leave it.
Yeah.
And then you come back. I used to be obsessed with a restaurant called Jekyll and Hyde in New York when I was a kid. I used to go every summer. It was a horror themed restaurant.
Cool.
And they never stopped. They never winked at the end and said, we're done here. It's over. Yeah. It was a place that was always, and I think that's the comfort fans have in wrestling, is that it's a place they can always go to.
Right.
You got to do your job. You will leave that world, but then you can come back to it and it's generally the same.
Yeah. And you know what? It's interesting, diving into this, you can tell that among wrestling fans and among wrestlers, the word fake is still kind of verboten. We don't call it fake.
Yes.
Because I guess because that's demeaning to how physically challenging it is.
Right.
But is that it? Is that the only thing? Is it just because it's demeaning to the athleticism involved in pulling off, the stunts essentially that you're doing?
No, I think there was also this weird illusion that what we're doing is real. I talked to people from the 70s and the whatever, and maybe when you did your show in, I don't know, Saskatoon in 1976, people may have thought it was real in this bubble.
Sure.
But that doesn't make what I do real. I don't know what to tell you. But I also, the reason this is the post-kayfabe of it. The reason I say, of course it's fake, is because I've seen that argument go nowhere before that.
Right.
We got to do something different.
Yeah.
Let's move this on a little.
Yeah.
And that's why I will say I'm very lucky that I'm able to be in AEW, that allows me the creative freedom to do that the talk show I do with them.
Yeah, I love it.
Which is in its own weird universe.
Yes.
Of not understanding when things are fake and not understanding when they're real, and creating a little world to myself. And I've always understood you just need to make a clear universe. You have to say, this is the way this world works.
Yeah.
And that's it. That seems to be what needs to be done.
I love it because it's the wrestling version of Between Two Ferns, right? Yeah. Like, if people are not familiar with RJ, and I'm sure people listening to this are going to be like RJ City fans and came to this podcast just because, oh my God, RJ City's doing an interview. But let's say you're just a listener of Our Fake History and you're not familiar with what RJ does. His YouTube show that's associated with the AEW called Hey EW sits down with wrestlers, AEW wrestlers, and does these really hilarious interviews with them where honestly, I can't tell how much the people you're interviewing are in on the joke. Seems like sometimes they are, sometimes they're
magic?
not.
Isn't that the magic of it all?
Yeah.
Isn't that everything coming around quite nicely?
Uh-huh.
And the fact that can be done in really a non-wrestling setting.
Yeah.
And I don't, I'm making it sound much more premeditated and meticulously planned than it is now. I also think wrestling is an industry where only certain people can exist. And when you sit down with them in a chair with a little coffee mug, they look incredibly weird. And they're now the strangest person on earth. They're so fascinating.
Yeah.
You know, I take a guy like, I don't know, Taz.
Sure.
Who's just not a person who would have a pleasant chat like this.
Yeah.
In life. So then it just becomes beautiful. Like wrestling is a world for certain people.
Yeah.
It's like, gee, there's certain people where I'm like, oh my God, if wrestling didn't exist, I don't know what you would be doing with your life.
Sure.
You know?
Sure. No,
You're not allowed to do this anywhere else.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. And that is beautiful. Yes. Because to me, it's like, oh, this is a creative outlet. Like these people get to be creative. And I know sometimes people get into it thinking that I'm being an athlete, and not that wrestling is not athletic, because I have a lot of respect for the physical feats that are performed. But truly, they are theater creators. And like, I just love that you embrace that entirely.
Yes.
Right. And I'm almost sometimes shocked that other people don't, but maybe I shouldn't be.
Well, you know, and it's even funny to call them athletic. And I'm not saying they're not athletic. I'm saying what they physically have to do is so non-applicable to any other realm of life.
Sure.
Any other logic we've had, like I've trained with MMA people and they're like, I don't understand. I have to fall down and then get back up. Yeah. It's so non-human. It is so illogical. It's like, let's take the weirdest thing and make it seem normal.
Sure.
You know?
Sure. But it looks astounding. Right.
Yes.
And that's, you know, and that is actually what made Lucha Libre really special, is that is like a big focus on the high flying moves. Like it is like so acrobatic that, you know, you can't help but be like, whoa, like these guys are doing like quadruple backflips off the ropes here. Like it's just, you know, as a pure acrobatic show, it's incredible.
Right. Yes. And that's just what I also think is great is it's structured in a way that I can wrestle a 47-year-old David Arquette and he could have a chance at beating me.
Sure.
Because of the way this world works.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just like boxing where it's like a 300-pound guy will always beat a, you know, 150-pound guy.
Yeah.
It's not that simple.
No.
Which is great. It removes the restrictions of real life.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Well, I think that's maybe a perfect spot to land here. Wrestling removes the restrictions of real life. We did it, RJ.
Are you sure? And everyone will say, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I like it. Well, here's the thing. I do a show that is all about trying to understand the fictional reality that we all live in together. Yeah. That's why I called the show Our Fake History. Right. Because I never wanted it to be like a snarky, like, oh, if you didn't know this story from the past wasn't real, you're a real idiot. Right. I always wanted it to be like, no. We have all participated in this fiction. And maybe a big part of human existence is sort of living in these stories. And so like, you know, wrestling is that, you know, in motion, you know?
Yes. And it's, and because it is it's the fake history is our bonding point.
Right.
It's a hard thing for people to let go of.
Right.
And I think that's why you get the most intense fans in wrestling.
Yeah. I think that's it. Well, okay. RJ City, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, for being an awesome guy. It's just been nice to talk to you for an hour, you know?
This has been delightful and we should do it more often.
Right on. Okay. Well, I'll see you soon, buddy.
Goodbye and thank you.
Goodbye and thank you. Okay, that's all for this week. And that's all for season 8 of Our Fake History. Thanks again to RJ City for coming on the podcast. Honestly, I had so much fun talking to RJ. I think you could hear the delight in my voice. I was pumped to talk to him.
For those who want more RJ City in their life, head on over to YouTube and look up Hey EW, hosted by RJ City. Or look for RJ's other long-running YouTube show, RJ Makes Coffee in His Underwear. Thanks again to RJ. You're the best, dude. Now, this is just a reminder that even though Our Fake History is going to be taking a season break, there's still going to be lots happening on the feed over the next month. You're going to be getting 2 Our Fake History throwback episodes with brand new introductions from yours truly. So you'll still be hearing from me. Season 9 of our show will begin officially on September 19th, 2023. But if you want more content in the meantime, then I encourage you to sign up for Patreon. Go to patreon.com/OurFakeHistory and check out all the awesome extra episodes that are available there. And speaking of Patreon, I need to give a special shout out to the following people. First of all, happy birthday, Asha. Happy birthday, Asha. Big ups to Jim Hess, to Jay Matthews, to Jonathan Howard, to Karen Monteith, to William Zayanitz, to Brandon Wills, to Ryan Mortensen, to Sonia Suchamalova, I hope I said that right, to Ronan Kilkelly, to Brian Bade, to Joyce Iller, to D-Knight87, to Eleanor Arakovic, and to Deus. All of these people have decided to pledge at $5 or more every month, so you know what that means. They are beautiful human beings. Thank you to everyone supporting at all levels on Patreon, and thank you to everyone that supports the podcast in all sorts of different ways. One of the easiest ways to support the show that doesn't cost you anything is to go give Our Fake History a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or whatever other apps allow you to rate podcasts. That really makes a difference. You can also go to our TeePublic store and get some merch. There will be some new merch coming in the new season, so keep an eye out for that. To get to that store, just go to OurFakeHistory.com and follow the link. If you would ever like to get in touch with me, I'll still be checking my emails over the next month, so please send me an email at OurFakeHistory@gmail.com or hit me up on Facebook, Facebook.com/OurFakeHistory. Or find me on Twitter. Or do I have to call it X now? Is it X? Anyway, I'm at Our Fake History on whatever that thing's called. I'm also on TikTok at Our Fake History. And please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and search up Our Fake History. Oh, and of course, on Instagram, I'm Our Fake History. I'm everywhere, people. I'm all over this internet of ours. And I'm Our Fake History wherever you look. As always, the theme music for the show comes to us from Dirty Church. You can check out Dirty Church at dirtychurch.bandcamp.com. And all the other music you heard on the show today was written and recorded by me. My name is Sebastian Major, and remember, just because it didn't happen doesn't mean it isn't real.